Hey everybody out there, this is Seto, and today for you guys we are going to be doing a deck update of my favorite deck of all time, that being Gravekeepers. Yes, now I love this deck to death, and there's a bunch of different ways you can play this deck, which we will talk about in this deck profile. Multitude of different ways you can play it nowadays in today's game in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I mainly say that in the trap department. The core fundamentals of the deck as of right now are still the same until we get released maybe more support and more generic Gravekeeper support. You could even turn this deck into a quote-unquote maybe more link spammy deck when we get our, I forget what the name of the card is, but when we get our dark link 2 monster. There may be ways that you can use that in the deck to link up into more powerful cards, but the deck is very slow and grindy in what it does still to this day. And Necro Valley with its errata, I think that happened a couple of months ago or a year ago, however long it's been, is more powerful than it ever was. So let's get into it now. So first we run our 3 Gravekeeper Spy. It's the backbone of the deck. You set it, you flip it, you bring out your Recruiter, your Descendant, you pop 2 cards, get around Pendulum Zones, get around whatever you need to, continue on with your day. 2,000 booty, 2,500 booty with Necro Valley on the field. He is a big guy. And like I said in one of my recent videos, I actually thought for many years that this was a girl. It has a big booty as a guy. He has a big booty. Next we run our 3 Recruiter, which you run in any Gravekeeper's deck. This is your Witch of the Black Forest. This searches out pretty much anything you really need in your Gravekeeper deck. It's a 2,000 defense with Necro Valley, a 1,700 attacker with Necro Valley. Can put in some damage if you are going into an open board, which is nice to have, but definitely Recruiter is staple in any Gravekeeper deck out there. An amazing card to have. Gravekeeper, Descendant, and Spy work together, as you guys know. But next, let's talk about Commandant. Now, Commandant, some people like running this as a 2 of, some people like running it as a 3 of. And it depends on the way you're building the deck. If you're playing Demise Gravekeepers using Carved Demise in the deck, then maybe you only run 2 Commandant. If you're running anything besides Demise in your Gravekeeper build of the deck, then you want to run 3 of this card. And the reason I say that, and I've seen people recently cut it down to 2 of because they don't understand how important this card is Necro Valley is the backbone of the deck. Gravekeeper Spy, you're going to use Gravekeeper Spy is your power play of the deck. It's your backbone. But Necro Valley, it's what holds this deck together. And if you do not get Necro Valley first turn, you are going to lose the duel. You need Necro Valley. Capiche? So you want to be able to get to that as soon as possible through drawing, searching, whatever. This can be a 21 attacker. It can help get over things, but mainly you're just going to pitch it, search your Necro Valley. That's what Commandant does for you. Pretty straightforward. Next we run our Double Descendant. No more, no less. Some people like run it as a 1 of, I remember back in the day, but I still prefer 2 of. It's a 2,000 attacker. You can pop 2 cards on the field if you have Recruiter and Spy. You just continue on with your day, get around problematic cards, pop problematic field spells, whatever the case may be, and you can just attack over things. So that's the nice thing about Gravekeeper's Descendant. He gets around problematic things. Even though he does target, he's still good removal. Then we're going to talk about some 1 of Gravekeepers that we run still. So 1 Gravekeeper's Assailant. Now, Gravekeeper's Assailant up until the Link era was a great card. I mean, hands down, amazing card. With links and the ability of they cannot go in defensive position, Gravekeeper's Assailant is not as good. But you still run Gravekeeper's Assailant. I would still run it, and I would, it's still a great card to run, and it helps get around problematic things. So 1 Gravekeeper's Assailant is still staple even in a Link era. 1 Gravekeeper's Heretic. Some people don't like this, and I understand why, because he's only 18 attacker and all that, but he does come in handy sometimes, and I do like him as a 1 of. It's just nice to have him. 1 Gravekeeper's Apostle, Nobleman. He used to be called Apostle in the OCG. A lot of people don't like this because it has to be destroyed by battle. It can't be destroyed by battle or card effect, just by battle. And But if, I mean, people not really, a lot of people I've played with this deck recently, they don't know what Gravekeepers do. If you're an old school player, well, you probably know what this deck does, but a lot of newer school players out there, they don't know what Gravekeeper does, and they'll just attack into this, and I'll get my spy out face down, then I'll be able to flip it and then just go off. So I do like the one apostle because it helps me get to my power play being quote-unquote spy. And then I also run one Gravekeeper's Shaman, or Oracle, I think it was in the OCG back in the day. Great card, helps protect your Necro Valley, has decent benefits. I just like it as a one-of, but these are the one-ofs I like. You can run different ratios. You could cut them if you want to run more traps. You could cut some things out if you want to run more hand traps, which we'll talk about more as we get into the deck profile, especially in the trap lineup department, which you can run and which you may not want to run. Next we run our 3 Necro Valley. It's staple. Now these do not have the errata, but pretty much Necro Valley has been buffed from what I've been told by a friend recently. I knew this prior. I just think from talking to my judge friend, this is how the ruling works now. So before, you could not Treeborn Frog, Greffer, the Dark World Greffer, Graffa, excuse me, could come back from the graveyard. Now they cannot. Necro Valley, if it's in the grave, it can't be moved, period. From any way, any sort of way. That's the new ruling or errata from what I have been told. If I have been told wrong, I do apologize about that. But that's what I was told by my judge friend, and I confirmed it with him. I was hearing those things correctly. But Necro Valley, good side deck card throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history, and just a good card in general to have. So 3 Necro Valley, love the card. Next we run 2 Gravekeeper Stele. Some people like running one of because you really rarely use the second one, but I still prefer 2 of in the deck, especially when you get into a grindy game, which this deck can force your opponent to do. 2 Gravekeeper Stele is definitely a must in those aspects. Now this card is something you could run or not run, and it's one of the reasons why I like Gravekeeper's Heretic, because if I go, Heretic or Assailant, or I have a Descendant on the field, if I can protect it and keep this card up, I can win games, because this is sort of like a Vanity's Emptiness. Now granted, game 2, my opponent may side things in to counter my Necro Valley, destroy it, so I may take these cards out in game 2 to side deck in some other things, which I do. There's a lot of cards that you can side in and out depending upon if you're going first or second in game 2 and game 3. I'm just going to say that. But this is a great card going game 1 because it's literally it's not Vanity's Emptiness, but it's a Vanity's Emptiness type of card, and I really like it as a 2-of in the deck. No more, no less. But it'd be really nice if we just had a generic searcher to search out Necro Valley cards. But who knows? Maybe we'll get those one day. Next we run Double Paw Duality. I don't like triple in the deck anymore because it can be slow and clunky, but 2-of, still good to have, along with the other engine that we're going to talk about here in a second. So 2 Paw Duality, and then I run a mini spellbook engine, which we're going to talk about here. So 2 Spellbook of Secrets. It's your searcher for the deck, helps search out your different combo pieces. 2 Spellbook of Knowledge. This is an amazing card to have, especially if you go Recruiter, activate Spellbook of Knowledge. You get to search a card, and you get to draw 2 cards. That's pretty good. So you're pretty much getting a generic, really good +2 with a search. That's pretty good. And then we run some other spellbook cards that I just like running because you can use them in this deck, being a spellbook-oriented deck, and they can come in handy in certain situations. So we run 1 Spellbook of Power, which is just a good searcher, and it can help you get around big things because Gravekeepers have a tendency to not be able to easily get around things of 1,000 or, excuse me, 2,000 or more attack that easily unless they can pop it, and sometimes that's hard to do, and you could just easily power up one of your 2,000 Gravekeeper monsters to make it 3,000 and just run over something. So I like the 1 Power, and I do like the 1 Wisdom for protection in certain situations. So this little spellbook lineup works well together, and I like it in the deck a lot. You don't have to run it, but it works for me, it does well, and so I run it. So that's the draw engine I like to run along with the Paw Duality. You could run Upstart Goblin if you wanted to make it a 39 card deck as well, but that's up to you to decide. We run 1 Royal Tribute. The OCG's had this back at 3-of for like 3-4 years now. Can I get this back at 3-of, Konami? Like, it's not doing anything in the OCG. I don't understand why. Next up we have 2 Imperial Tombs of the Necro Valley. We have, it's a good card to have. It's pretty much like Infinity Barrier, kind of. But I definitely like it as a 2 of in the deck. It just helps negation, and once you get your board set up, it's a great card to have as a 2 of. 2 Storming Mirror Force. I really like this in the deck. Hands down, I run it. You need to run it in the deck because it helps protect your small Gravekeepers. And what I mean by that is, say your opponent brings out a big monster, like a Link monster or something of that nature, and they're trying to just get around your small Gravekeepers, like your 2000s, where you can just be like, okay, just non-targeting, bounce everything back you have, and there you go. Now, you could run things like Compulse in the side deck and whatnot if you're going into like a Link spam deck, but let's talk about the rest of the traps I run, and then we'll go into other traps that you can run into the deck. I also run 1 Rite of Spirit as well, which is a good card. It's pretty much quote-unquote like Call of the Haunted for Gravekeepers, and it's a good card to have. You could easily run this as a 2 of in the deck if you really want to. This was really a good 2 of card back when you used to use the Descendant combo with going bring back Recruiter, pop, get another search off Recruiter, things of that nature. It was a really good combo to have, but I like it as a 1 of nowadays. It's a little bit slower, but it's still a good card, don't get me wrong, and you can run it as a 2 of. So the trap lineup I run the Solemn Brigades, with a big Solemn Brigade now. So 2 Solemn Strike, 1 Solemn Judgment, 1 Solemn Warning. Now, there's other trap cards you can run in the deck, and we're going to talk about that right now. Lose 1 turn is a good 2 of in the deck if you want to run. I really like running that card in game 2. Once I know my deck, once I know how my opponent's deck, how it functions, I sometimes side in Lose 1 turn. Lose 1 turn is a good side deck card. You can side in hand traps as well into this deck. And if I'm going second in game 2 or game 3, I will always side some of these traps out and some of my other cards out for hand traps like Ghost Ash, Ghost Ogre. You could easily run the deck, but I would definitely run traps in the deck because Gravekeepers thrive on control. They thrive on that. I lock you out of the graveyard with Necro Valley, I control the board, and I just slowly beat you down and just control the tempo of the game. That's where Gravekeepers thrive, and that's what this deck tries to do. And you could either run it by using the Solemn Brigade. Now, I know, like, if you're going into game 2 or game 3, and with the new rulings of going into time and all that, take these out, put in hand traps, and there you go. You know, run your Ghost Ash, run your Ghost Ogre, run your Drill and Lock, your Effect Veilers, whatever you want to. Especially if you're going into game 2 or 3, you could easily do that, easily. So you may be saying, oh, I'm paying all these live, but with the new ruling, it may not be as good. Yeah, that's true. But if I'm going into game 2 or game 3, shouldn't I be siding in my hand traps? Shouldn't I be siding these things out for things to hurt against, you know, that are going to hurt this deck I'm playing against? Yeah, you could easily do that. And that's what I say. This is a good going first build of the deck. As you're going second, we're going, in game 2 and game 3, you side in your other cards, and there you go. So there's a bunch of different traps you could run. There's different things you could run, but I really like the Storming Mirror Force in the deck. This is clutch. This really helps out nowadays. Definitely run it. I used to run regular Mirror Force in the deck years and years and years ago. But I like the Storming Mirror Force trap in the deck. So let's go into the extra deck. So I run my Field Centers, as you can see there. And I run some Pokemon cards because I love my Skyla, and I love my Lily, and I love my Karen. But let's get into the Exceed monsters. So you just run a bunch of rank 4s and a couple of Link monsters. Like I said, if we're able to get more Link spammy later on in the deck, depending upon how it develops in the future, we'll do that. But we run the Utopia package. You know, Utopia 39, Utopia Prime. This is the main thing I go into, by the way. This is like the #1 thing I will go into next to Bagasucha, which is actually really good in the deck, and you could easily run Bagasucha as a 2 of in the deck. We run Castel, Tornado Dragon, number 70, Malevolent Sins, Giant Hand, 101, Performer Pals, Trapeze Magician. I do go into this from time to time. Heartland Drago for killing people in game. Believe me, this really helps out. If you want to run Gaga Cowboy, you can. I just can't seem to find mine around my decks. Number 103 Ragnar Zero. For 1/1 removal, Diamond Direwolf is good. And then I'll run Sayuja and Borlo Dragon, because once in a blue moon I go for these, especially if I'm really controlling the board. And Sayuja can really put in work in some instances, depending upon my setup in my hand. But that's the extra deck. Like I said, the main things I usually go for. Honestly, if I had to like play the extra deck, and that's the thing about Gravekeepers, they really don't need an extra deck, and that's where you can really use the extra deck if you wanted to, for things like your Ghost or Cherry, your Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, by running things like if you run against ABCs, well then you put Buster in the extra deck so you can use Cherries more often. Or if you run against BA, well, you could put Beatrice and Dante, or whatever the case is out there, whatever the best decks are out there using the extra deck. You can easily put those things in and then put in your Cherries into from your side deck into your main deck if you have those cards in your extra deck, and then easily use that card, because this deck really does not utilize the extra deck besides maybe 5-6 cards. And like I said, the main ones I go into pretty much are these ones right here. I would say off the top of my head are these cards right here. I go into the Utopia package, the Heartland Drago, Gaga Cowboy. If I had him, I would put him in here, and Trapeze Magician, because sometimes he does win me games by using his effect. So those are the main ones I go into, and then you have all the room over here to put in side deck hate, cards that other decks use, like spirals, whatever the case may be. You just side in your Cherries and you can automatically win those games a lot more easier. But that's up to you to decide how you want to build the deck if you're taking it into a competitive setting. But I hope you guys all enjoy this deck profile. I thoroughly love playing Gravekeepers. It is by far my favorite deck of all time to play, because if you guys don't know, I love ancient history, I love ancient Egypt, and that's what originally got me into Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's why I love this deck to pieces. So till next time, guys, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling, and go GKs for life, Holmes. GKs for life, Holmes. I'll see you guys later. Take care, everybody.